So one thing that we talk about in my classes quite often is stereotypes. And generally students hear the word stereotype and they think, okay, this is something that I want to push back against. In my classes, I research Muslims in the media. So we think about stereotypes, for example, of Muslims that are often represented as terrorists, right? Which students are quick to assert is flatly inaccurate and something that, again, they want to push back against. We also think about, for example, Muslim women are often presented as victims, as consistently oppressed, and that's something that they also recognize as inaccurate. We then ask, right, if we have these problematic representations, what representations can we put into place that oppose those stereotypes? And so I think our natural inclination might be, well, if we have this stereotype, that it should be something that's diametrically opposed to it. So an example of that would be, if instead of seeing a woman who's obsessed with marriage, we might see her being really career-oriented. So if we think about this bad representation of Muslims or representations of Muslims who are terrorists, that, something diametrically opposed to that would be something that's good, right? So thinking, for example, about like a Muslim who worked for the US government, right, instead of fighting it. So there's examples of that in something like 24 or Jack Ryan. Or we might see a Muslim who sort of really rejects the concept of religion. So a common trope that we see are Muslim women removing their hijab, right? We see that, for example, in a film like Apple TV Plus's Hala. The problem with that is that these ideas about being good is that just like being bad, it's a box, right? It's something that's narrow, it's reductive, and it doesn't really offer Muslims much choice in how to construct their identity outside of these two boxes. What if a Muslim woman doesn't see herself as a victim but wants to continue wearing the hijab? What if a Muslim, is not a violent person but wants to protest the US government and certainly can't imagine working for it? Generally, we don't see room for figures like this in our media today, outside of these sort of good and bad boxes. So in our classes, we sort of really try to analyze how and why stereotypes exist and how it's really necessary to have a very nuanced understanding of how they work, right? In order to really think through that working against them is not easy and requires nuanced work.